Today, I'm delighted to have a conversation with Michael Cook, who won a scholarship from the American Wine Society Educational Foundation. And his research, his PhD research, if I'm not mistaken, was on hot climate viticulture. So
Yes.
first of all, congratulations, Michael, for being awarded this scholarship in 2024, and welcome to this interview series. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Lesschaeve. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. So, Michael, can you maybe for this audience introduce yourself and really tell us what really prompted you to end up doing research in the vineyards in the hot climate of Texas?
Absolutely. Well, we'll start from the very beginning. I am a Dallas native from Dallas, Texas, and grew up with not a strong farming background. So I had a couple uncles who ranched cattle. Of course, cattle is king in Texas, and
Mhm.
so is cotton. And grapes are way down the list, although our industry is growing rapidly. It's a very exciting time to be in Texas wine. So um, I started working out on my uncle's cattle ranch and fell in love with hard work and learned about hard work in the Texas sun and really started to appreciate agriculture. Of course, that was more on the you know animal side of things,
Mhm.
but just being outside and being amongst nature and just having an appreciation for how difficult and how
Mhm.
unpredictable agriculture can be,
Mhm.
especially in Texas, really started to plant some seeds, so to speak. And my grandparents and parents had small gardens, but actually, my journey is not incredibly romantic, but it definitely took some wild turns before I landed in the American wine industry. Um, as I was completing high school, continued to work on my uncle's ranch, working as often as I could. And then I had to decide where to go to college. And
Mhm.
actually, I was most interested in initially becoming a game warden with the Parks and Wildlife Department. And so, just again, that connection with being outside in nature, kind of coupled with my love for animals and wildlife. And I always wanted to be a police officer. And I was about to register for a very good school
Mhm.
outside of Fort Worth. And all of a sudden, I received some information and I started connecting with my extension horticulture agents in the Dallas Fort Worth area. And we started talking. Have you ever thought about horticulture? You have a love for plants and I had investigated some things with Parks and Wildlife, and it's an
Mhm.
incredible, uh, you know, career option. But I realized it may not have been the best fit for me, and so I decided to um, pursue my studies at Texas A&M University, which has a very robust horticulture program. Not as much with grapes at the time, although we had a couple professors who focused on both viticulture, Dr. George Ray McKitchen, who just retired, and then enology, which was Dr. Greg Cobb, who has since passed. And as soon as I started taking courses in horticulture at Texas A&M, I mean, that seed that was planted a
Mhm.
long time ago just started to blossom, and I just fell in love with the art and science of growing plants. And of course, being in Texas, we have a lot more challenges than other places. I mean, I was in
Indeed.
California for a
Mhm.
couple of years, and I mean, I'm telling you, you could literally spit a seed in the ground, walk away, and come back, and at the end of the year, it's a beautiful plant. It's not that easy, but you come to Texas and
Mhm.
we have everything working against us for high value horticulture, especially our fruit crops,
Mhm.
with a few exceptions. So, anyways, I studied horticulture at Texas A&M. I did very well. I was very engaged, both with my advisors and my professors, and I was very involved in student groups. And also, I started forming relationships with our extension faculty at Texas A&M, and of course, extension and where I work now. Both, of course, I'm a full-time PhD student in our Department of Horticultural Sciences at Texas A&M. But for the past 10 years, I have worked as the extension viticulturist for the 55
Wow.
counties of North Texas, which has about almost 1,000 acres of grapes, which includes both vinifera hybrids and even muscadines out east. So, anyways, but
You're very busy. So being a
it,
specialist and a full-time PhD student, how do you manage?
it's a lot. Well, if you would have seen me about 2.5 years ago, I was a lot thinner and I had a lot more hair. But no, I want to say a couple things on how I manage, and it's a team effort, and so I'm very blessed. Not only as soon as I finished my degree at Texas A&M, and I was very much also active in our academic conferences and scholarship opportunities there. So my support started in my undergraduate years with our wine industry, which I'm so thankful to be a recipient of the American Wine Society Education Foundation Scholarship. And in particular, thanks to Banfi Wines, this is an incredible honor. Um, I was able and very fortunate to receive a full fellowship to Fresno State in California. Worked with
Mm.
Dr. Con Curterall and Dr. Jim Kennedy a little bit. A
Mhm.
lot of great experiences there in learning what full scale, you know, massive scale bulk wine production entails
Yeah.
in the San Joaquin Valley, and really pushed my limits there. But I have learned so much, and that's really where the hot climate piece started. I did a lot of work with trying to improve quality with Bronco Wine Company, who are the makers of Two Buck Chuck from Trader Joe's, among many other incredible
Mhm.
value wines. Um, and, California has its challenges, especially the heat and water. So
Right.
we did quite a bit on the grape growing side of things with irrigation management and canopy management in order to help the vines get through the year, but maintain or even improve quality, namely color, and possibly even tannin development and structure. So that kind of started right there. At graduate school, my passion for teaching, I was responsible for teaching and kind of mentoring undergraduates. I taught some people from some of my graduate colleagues who had never been to the United States before how to drive a car. And so there's like just
Yeah.
being involved, and being active and trying to give back as much as I could, even as a student,
Mhm.
and learning, developing a passion for teaching. And again, that extension was kind of in my background, in the back of my head, like, what do I want to do with my life? Do I want to grow grapes commercially? Which is a noble effort, and it's very hard to do long term, successfully, profitably. Or do I want to be someone who can support our industry every step of the way with research? So that research is something that really caught my attention in California. Again, in that teaching, that love for teaching.
Mhm.
So, how do I manage everything? Well, I'm very blessed and fortunate to have a great team of viticulturists and other horticulturists. So the first thing I'll say is coming back to Texas A&M. I've been a PhD student for about 2.5 years now, so about halfway done. I finished all my coursework, which is a huge load off because Dallas. I actually live north of Dallas, so in Denton. That's about a 4-hour drive to the motherland, Aggie
Oh my
land,
God. Okay. Yeah.
College Station. So, and our department doesn't offer on many online courses, so I had to drive every week 4 hours each way just to attend my coursework. And of course, we have facilities there where I do a lot of research and can also do some of my extension job there. And we have meetings and things. So it was very productive. But for 2 years, I had been every week driving 8 hours just for my PhD and some of my extension responsibilities. So I couldn't do that without the support of my graduate committee. So our department head, Dr. Amit Dhingra, who is from or hails from Washington State. So he was an integral part of their horticulture program there. He focused on apples and pears and grapes, among
Mhm.
other things. So he has been an incredible friend and mentor, and he has his hands in many pots. So he's a great inspiration. And then our statewide viticulturist, who I started working with before my extension job as a student worker, Dr. Justin Shiner, who, by the way, was just awarded the top extension award with our national American Society for Enology and Viticulture um,
So yeah,
conference.
you have a lot of inspiration around you and a lot of
Yes,
support, and that's amazing.
yes. So
So
he's been incredible.
congratulations for that, and yeah, it's very shows your commitment to research and to the industry.
Yes,
So if I may go back to the research,
yes.
now that's 2 years and a half, a lot of coursework which is mandatory to pass your degree. So what are you focusing on in your research? And did you choose your topic, or did your supervisor provided inspiration or direction for that topic?
Great question. Yeah. So I want to say without the support of my colleagues and friends, I couldn't do this, my
Mm,
family. Also, I want to say this, and then we'll move to the research is I wouldn't be where I am today without great organizations, professional organizations like the American Wine Society Education Foundation in particular, and these scholarships that help me financially be able to cover those costs. As you know, graduate school is very expensive and it's not getting any cheaper. And being in
mhm,
agriculture, we don't make millions of dollars. So, it's a labor of love. And I want to especially thank American Wine Society and all they do and for Banfi Wines for that scholarship. So that's a huge help, not just the financial component, but also that support of, hey, we recognize what you're doing, that motivation of the wine industry is watching. And that's really segueing into the research. When I was in California, I had never been to California before.
mhm.
And my advisor had a project that the industry was interested in that could really help them out. And so there was not much thinking on my part. I kind of jumped in there and gave it my best try and did great. But moving to my PhD in horticulture, I have the I guess you could say luxury in this case of working hand in hand with the Texas wine industry. And they've pioneered and really worked through so many of our challenges over the last really since the 80s. And we've really come into our own just in the last 10 years, but really 5 years. And so I've been fortunate working with Extension. We're able to take that knowledge from the university and bring it to the farmer. We also work on research ourselves. So we're a small group across the state. And Justin and I have worked together for almost 10 years. And so our friendship and his mentorship has been very important. And over the last 10 years, as someone in Extension, you start thinking, okay, what are some hot topic items that really need to be addressed? What are we facing here in Texas? And then, of course, when you start looking at both basic and applied research projects, sometimes there's a little bit of both you can squeeze out of a project. It's like how can we best help our industry facing all these challenges, not only today, but what's the environment going to look like in 10 years or 20
Mm.
years? We're growing long-lived, perennial, high-value fruit crops. So the project I started focusing on was one that not only I hope will be very useful and practical and timely for our Texas grape growers, but also those in hot climate or those who are maybe in a warm climate that may be getting hotter over the next
Mhm.
decades or century. So, there's been a lot of work done in California on heat stress and drought stress, and that's continuing on. And so we're focusing on a big project in Texas where we're looking at tools in the grower's toolbox or their arsenal on how we can manage our vines sustainably. And by that, I mean um, with precision and doing so that is not only sustainable where our vines are productive for as long as possible, but also we want to maximize our profitability. We're in a commercial agriculture industry. And so when I started developing this project, we said, okay, it started with a lot of work that Justin Shiner has done, and I have kind of jumped in at the tail end. So what my research looks at is it's attempting to address three major challenges with viticulture in hot and unpredictable environments or growing conditions across, potentially the U.S., but especially in Texas. And that is The first challenge that we have, and that this research hopes to address, is many of our red wine cultivars in Texas we can grow them, but they tend to produce wines with very high pH. And there's a complex relationship there, and we've had focused our energy on a lot of research on trying to essentially lower the pH, both from the enology perspective, but also in the vineyard. And there have been a number of what we call failed attempts at doing so, which is not failed in the practical sense because we now can recommend growers not do those things for that purpose. And so one thing that's really scant in the literature, but there could be some indirect effect, is irrigation. How
Mhm.
we manage irrigation, and more importantly, vine water use efficiency. And that word has been used for a long time, but that work's never been done quantitatively or empirically in the state of Texas. Not only that, but it hasn't been done across all growing regions. I mean, Texas is huge. We have 1,300 different soils, rainfall that ranges from 60 inches a year in the east to about 20 inches at best in the west. And lots of differences, lots of variability, lots of diversity. So we have wines that tend to have high pH. They're not as shelf stable. We can have issues there.
Okay,
Um,
can I stop you here? Because for the people who are not, like me, a major
sure.
in chemistry,
Yes.
why is it a problem to have a high pH in a wine?
Great question. So when we talk about wine making, pH is one of the most important things we look at in our not only during the winemaking process, but also in that bottle when you buy that wine. Most wines are 3.7 or below, and when they're there, they're fairly microbially stable. There's things that happen chemically in the wines with color stability, and how that color interacts with tannin structures. So what it boils down to is, in Texas, if we're growing a red European wine variety, like let's say Tannat, um, or Montepulciano or Tempranillo, very popular red wine cultivars in Texas. They may have pHs of 4.0 or 4.2. That doesn't mean the wines are going to taste bad, but they may not be as stable in the bottle, microbially speaking, or even chemically speaking, as it relates to how long that wine lasts at its best.
Mhm.
So, if you wanted to, to let's say age a wine, keep it in a bottle for more than a year, it not to say all wines are like this, but we've noticed a lot of wines tend to have issues with storability. Um, and we have research to support that. So if there's anything we can do, of course, in the winery, you go, well, if you have high pH, why don't you just add acid, right? That will lower the pH. Well, you can't just add as much acid as you want. That relationship's not totally linear, first of all. But secondly, in order to bring our pH to a range like in California, maybe 3.5, 3.6, maybe shoot, we'd even go with 3.7. You're going to usually have to add so much acid, then the wine is just a tart bomb, right? It's so off balance. So there are some new technologies that we can utilize in the winery, but is there something we can do in the vineyard to
Yes.
help foster a healthier pH of the wine and more of a target range? And people may laugh in other areas and go, well, we don't have a pH issue. But as climates warm and our stressors increase, both biotic and abiotic, the person who's laughing in 20 years from now may not be laughing as hard. So this research I think is important for a number of reasons, but pH is one of those. And so we're looking at how we can manipulate the vine through two things. Number one, again, is irrigation and how we irrigate our vines, and that we can discuss that for an hour. But essentially, how can we maximize vine water use efficiency? How the vine actually utilizes that water efficiently and resourcefully. You may have heard, and in a lot of wine growing regions, actually withholding water, i.e., applying some sort of water deficit, can impart a stress to the vine, and usually that's moderate. And it's at key phenological times, so not the whole year, although there may be cases for that. But you're withholding water for some time in the year to help the vine, from a physiological perspective, change in some way to help improve quality parameters. And so that leads us to kind of the second objective. We were able to improve, to some degree at least, let's say color, anthocyanin development, and a predilection towards a more stable color constituency. And so what that means is, if we can manipulate how we water vines, we may be able to protect or even encourage some of the quality parameters we're looking for, like color. There may be some other things that may catch us by surprise that we may not be looking for that may be positive. The problem is, there's two problems that I can think of right off the top of my head. The first is, Texas is a hot climate, and our level of stress, it's all in perspective, right? You may say, well, in Napa, they get 110 degrees. Yeah, but they cool off it every night. It's
Every
gorgeous,
night, yeah.
right? Beautiful. In France, they may get hot just as hot as Texas does, but they can cool off at night, right? The temperature swings are much more moderate. The highs and lows are more moderate. Texas, I like to say Mother Nature is schizophrenic when it comes to Texas, right? It's all over the place. There's highs and lows, and our vines are put through hell, essentially. We have soil challenges, we have lots of disease pressure. So there's certainly opportunity, but that level of stress is so high. The first question we have to ask is, okay, this deficit irrigation stuff that we did in Fresno, California, or that's happening all over the place, is it going to work in Texas? Right? Can we even see an improvement in color stability and the types of anthocyanins we get? Tannins, right? Both the monomeric tannins and polymeric tannins. Do we see anything there? What about aroma? So that's something interesting. So we have the pH challenge, we have the general quality challenge. Can we dispel the myth that pulling back on irrigation, adds this stress? First of all, what is stress? How do we quantify it? We're now utilizing tools that have never been used before in Texas. Some of them are old, some of them are brand new that most places are not even utilizing. So I'll talk about that in a second. The last thing, and I think really the most important thing, has to do with what we call grapevine resiliency, right? You're growing grapes, you want to do so for as long as possible, decades. Let's say if we were able to initiate a deficit irrigation strategy, even if it was mild or moderate, let's say, just for a short period of time, maybe a couple, months, month and a half, 2 months, we were able to hold back water. The vine was a little stressed. There was a little bit less vegetative growth. More effort and energy was placed on the fruit itself. There was more quality, berries being developed. Let's just say that. Okay, that's great. But that's just this year. If we're adding additional stress to the system, what is that going to do long term? Because if I'm a grape grower and I'm investing in a future here, sustainable viticulture, sustainably profitable viticulture, I want to make sure that what I'm doing is going to be advantageous in the long run. So if I see a benefit, oh yeah, I saw a little bit better quality wine, right? We can document that from the vineyard and in the winemaking. At what cost to the mother vine's longevity? If I get a little bit better quality when I deficit irrigate, but my lifespan of the vine is cut in half, or I'm predisposed now to even, more issues, that's going to cost me a lot more money. Is it worth doing? And so that's kind of the third and key piece. And it's hard to get just in a 3-year study. So we're working with some new faculty at Texas A&M. Our secondary metabolite professor and our grapevine physiologist, who are really going to be instrumental in helping kind of tie the bow on the whole package and looking at certain markers and parameters for, is the mother vine happy and healthy, right? So that's important. So long story short, we're looking at that. We're also looking at, okay, Texas, I just said, is very diverse, and there's a lot of we grow grapes across the whole state. Most are in the high plains, which is an arid desert that happens to have good quality water, although that resource is dwindling, up near Lubbock. Okay, we can deficit irrigate there pretty easily because they get 20 inches of rain a year at best. And a lot of that is more in the fall and winter, just like California. But in Dallas, Fort Worth, which has a sizable acreage, in the Hill Country, which has a very sizable amount of acreage, we get 30, 40 inches of rain. When does it fall? I mean, who the heck knows, right? We'll get 10 inches in one day and then nothing for 2 months. But can you even deploy a deficit irrigation strategy when Mother Nature's throwing rain our way? So one thing we're adding to one of our studies that's a very fertile site is cover cropping, right? You've heard cover cropping can do a lot in the vineyard for soil health, but can that cover crop help reduce the amount of water that's being held in the top of the root zone? Also, pairing back to wine pH, uh, there are certain cover crops that can help scavenge for things like potassium. Potassium is necessary. It's a macronutrient. We need it in our soil, but when we have really fertile soils, we might have too much. And when that's being taken up in excess, it can lead to high pH wines. So that cover crop is an additional treatment we're deploying to help maybe have a little bit more latitude in our deficit irrigation, and B, it might add some benefit to that wine pH issue.
Yeah, that's very interesting to have this cover crop and this competition of plants, the vine on one side and the cover crop. So,
Yeah.
I mean, are you doing research on experimental vineyards? Do you have like partnership with growers? Because, you cannot, I mean, I've been a researcher. You cannot really do research all over the place. So you need to have a plan somehow. So how did you design your research and to test for these big hypotheses, actually? So that's fascinating.
So going all the way back, I am devoted to our Texas wine industry, and I want to have research that's as far reaching as possible. And as we said, Texas is big. So if I just had one research site, let's say in the Hill Country, that would help our Hill Country growers, but it wouldn't do anything for the other growers. And so when I started this research and having connections with Extension, being boots on the ground, in hand with growers, we form very close relationships. Yes, it has its challenges, right? I can't do destructive things in the vineyard, like pulling leaves to analyze leaf area index or something. And so the trial I have established 3 trial sites across the state of Texas. One in Lubbock area in the High Plains, so we have that area covered. One in the Hill Country, totally different growing conditions, and then one in North Texas in Dallas, Fort Worth. These are all planted in red wine cultivars on 1103P rootstock. They're all, right in their prime age-wise, and they're all in commercial vineyards. And so when I go out there to monitor irrigation, we have our weather stations, our soil sensors, our floor pulse, microtensiometers, and all this battery. I'm also working with a gentleman out of Austin, Greg Passmore, with Passmore Virtual Reality. We're doing aerial imaging with LiDAR and other multispectral imaging, mapping our canopies. It's exciting, but always as a researcher and someone with extension, we have to be respectful of the incredible opportunities growers are allowing us to work in their vineyards. And so we're very careful, but it's a great opportunity because, how do you engage with the industry as an academic, right? There can be some resistance there just naturally. And so one of the best ways to do it is to put your money where your mouth is and go, hey, I'm in your vineyard. I'm here to help you and the growers in our region. And I want you to see firsthand and have play an active role in our research. I want to ask you what is most important to you as a grape grower and to build a research project around the needs of the industry. Address those needs. We have the tools, the scientific instrumentation, but the growers have been doing this for a long time, and we can work together.
Yeah, and
And
probably
so,
they have data they can share with you. Work
and
with
it's
growers, and they have a lot of data historic
and,
data that maybe they can be useful for you.
and when they're invested in that, it's
Mm-hmm.
happening in their vineyard. I mean, talk
Mm-hmm.
about value added, and then having these high profile growers going, yeah, we did this and it didn't work. I'll be darned. I didn't think it would, or maybe it did work. And then they can help us extend that knowledge. So yeah, so it's really exciting.
Yeah. So
We're
you
working.
one of data collection, or you have studied the data collection at the same time as your coursework. So you will
Yes.
have 3 years, you said, of data.
So I've taken 2.5 years worth of courses, and I am very fortunate. I wrote 3 grants and was very, I guess, lucky that all 3 were funded. So this project is fully funded. There's multiple different projects going on, but we receive both state and federal funding. So that
Well,
makes
can I stop you here? You were
sure.
not. It's a competition. You were not lucky. Your project must have been good.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I there were a lot of great projects, and I'm very happy to say that we were compelling enough to be funded. So yes,
Yeah.
I think the Texas Department of Agriculture, the Texas Water Development Board, um, and USDA see the value not just in Texas, but what we may find here in other areas. In the southeast, maybe up north. So yeah, so that helped a lot, and the projects are ongoing. We had our first year last year. It
Okay.
took a full year just to get some of the scientific instrumentation that's brand new. I mentioned the word FloraPulse. That was a technology that was developed in the Northeast, and it's been commercialized in California. And get this, this technology is so advanced. How do you determine how stressed a mother vine is, right?
Yeah.
Namely, with irrigation and water use. There are a number of tools. Some are old school, right? But now we're at a point in time where technology is getting so good and it's getting more affordable. This is not just something the academic can use, that growers can use. And so we're looking at a number of technologies. We've got the traditional soil sensors and ET calculating weather stations, so we can estimate how much water's been lost from the vineyard and go, we have kind of a checkbook and go, okay, we now know how much to add. And if we're going to do a deficit, we take, you know, 30% off the bill, and we withhold that. We're doing a lot of sampling of the vines. So we've had one full year to kind of test run. We've gotten some good data so far. We're working with a professor at A&M in geophysics, looking at ground penetrating radar, trying to map the root system and go, what does the root system look like? We can't see the rhizosphere, what's there. And surely, both based on where we're growing the grapes, there's inherently going to be a difference in root architecture. But also, if we're going to withhold water, where are those roots going to go? And that's I wouldn't say wishful thinking. We're definitely looking at it, but I don't know how important that will be in this study right now. But we're starting to lay a foundation for future work as well,
Mhm.
this research. So to answer your question, yeah, we've had one full year. Mother Nature threw us a number of curveballs, just life threw a bunch of curveballs, but it was a great opportunity to fine tune the research. I've got some great committee members now on my committee, an enologist and a soil scientist, Dr.
Mhm.
Andrea Bodizatu and Dr. Julie Howe. So having them on, and of course our new faculty, root biologist and grape physiologist will be useful in our secondary metabolite faculty. We're so glad they're on board. So we have 2 more years of research at least. And so this year, we'll be starting within about, let's see, it's end of February. So in about 1 week and a half, 2 weeks, the sites will go active again. And we hope for a very successful growing season for our growers and research season.
Yeah. So even if you just had 1 year of data, you said you established the foundation, testing, your system. Is there anything that was, surprising or a big haha moment that you experimented or you experienced through this research? And it's amazing the collaboration that you have, and I can see it's a well thought project with a lot of actors, because yes, you have only one season to collect data, so you really want to make sure that you collect all the data that you need to
Yes.
eventually look at correlations and try to explain certain aspect of the behavior of the vines. But any haha moments in the first year?
We didn't. So that's a great question. So as you know, when you collect mountains of data and you're one person in charge of recording that data and running it through statistical analysis, and you've got your colleagues supporting you, but there's a backlog. And so I'm very happy to say that we've learned from mistakes what we're going to do this year. And the data is looking good that we did collect. But there were some no significance. I think we're going to tweak our irrigation a little bit. There was no significance in some things, but we don't have a great picture because we've added some more things. So correlation's been hard. Also, in the hill country, we lost the entire crop. So it was more of, I would say, a proof of concept, or essentially a year or two practice. In the high plains, we had a crop. In North Texas, we had a crop. So there, we've got the berries right now frozen, and so we're going to process those in the lab and make some batch wines from those, some microfirms. So nothing has stood out, mostly because we haven't finished analyzing the data, and also we had some hiccups along the way, as you normally do with any type of large research across many different sites, logistics, and all that. So I wish I had something like, oh yeah, we saw a huge response. We didn't see anything this year. Again, partly that is just the nature of what we're trying to do, but everything is ready to rock and roll. When you start a project and you've got grant funding that kicks in at a certain time and new technologies and trying to figure out how you're going to get all this done, we didn't get started until April, or pretty much late April. So we were rushing just to get everything installed. Now that's all been done. So we're on track, we're on time, we're ready to rock and roll. We're going to run out the gate. So we're looking good. So I expect to chat with you next year, and I would love to let you know what we found then. So we're looking good, but yeah, no aha moments yet.
That's okay. That's okay. I think the learning that you express, are some kind of aha moments. And yeah, data collection is always fun. So to go back to the scholarship and how you really, it impacted your life, your work as a graduate student and extension specialist, driving 4 hours one way and 4 hours the other way at the end of the week.
Yes.
Anything else that you could say that how the scholarship really helped you? And you may know that we are in open application period for the scholarship 2025. So if you wanted to share or maybe encourage some of the graduate students who might be eligible for the scholarship, what would you tell them?
Absolutely. So I'll say a couple. You know me, I'm not at a loss for words.
You're not.
So you've been very patient with me. So the first thing I'll say is yes, without a doubt, as a student, whether you're an undergraduate or a master's student or a PhD student, or you have a full-time job and you're trying to start your own business, financial help is critical, right? And so that obviously when people think of scholarships, immediately they're looking for financial relief, right? To help pay the bills. Finances creates a whole worry that really doesn't need to be there. As you know, driving and school and research and full-time job, and AgriLife Extension has been very supportive of this. Finances creates this worry that just takes time and energy. So that financial relief's tremendous. But what I encourage students to look at, and what has really been helpful for me, is just that little pep, that little boost of motivation. Because if you think about it, right, the American Wine Society is an incredibly prestigious and active organization that supports American wine. And again, I'm privileged to be a recipient of the scholarship, and thank Banfi Wines. I'll say that forever. But when you think about, you're putting in that application, telling your story, right? You've worked on that application. You've told them who you are and your passion and your dreams and aspirations. I want to stay with Extension and give back to our industry for the rest of my career. But that motivation, right? You and I are talking. We would have never met otherwise, right? And so I get to learn about you. You get to share your experiences. I get to do the same, and I can learn from that. And that's part of my journey. So as a student, I think it's so important to take advantage of that relationship there. You and I, hopefully, will continue our conversations, and we may meet in person one day and have a glass of wine. But that motivation, that, hey, we notice something about you. We support you, and we're here for you. And, that opens up a whole network. So whether that's just a cordial friendship, or you would have no idea, one of the great strengths of being an Extension is that I get to socialize and network with people all the time. And I have been very successful in learning how to interact with people and learn, hey, we all have our weaknesses and how to improve upon those. And one of the great things about our American wine industry, with great organizations like American Wine Society and ASCV and ASCV Eastern Section, is all these brilliant people are at your fingertips, and they're so humble, many of them, and they're willing to share. And, my mentors that I've mentioned, that motivation to, even though it's stressful and it's hard and there's going to be failures, that motivation to get up every day and do your best. So the American Wine Society, yes, the financial relief is tremendous. It's critical in my success. But also that support, that motivation. We're here for you. We see that you're doing important work, and we recognize that. I think that's tremendous.
Well, thank you, Michael. And congratulations on your journey. I think we are coming to an end of this conversation. Anything you want to add? I really enjoy our conversation and learning about your research. You are so passionate. I think the Texas grape and wine industry is very lucky to have you as an extension specialist, and we really want you to succeed. So any final words you want to share with us?
I would say this, it's all about giving back. And so as a student, I have been a student for quite some time, but I've worked in the real world for, a decade. I want to just encourage students, if this is the first time they're applying for a scholarship or the 100th time, we're all human beings. Take, your failures in stride and learn from them, right? It's all about learning. Connect with mentors. I'm on the mentorship committee with the American Society of Enology and Viticulture. It's all about giving back, both giving back to students, but students can give back too, not only to their colleagues and peers and their mentors, but also to the industry. So always have a passion for something. Now do what you're passionate about, and do it with everything you have, and get out there, put yourself out there, and be recognized for the good things you're doing, and recognize your weaknesses and learn from those. And again, the American Wine Society is a great place to learn. Y'all are doing an incredible amount of impactful things in supporting our American wine industry, and learning is a key component of that. So don't be discouraged if you don't get that one scholarship. Get out there, learn from your mistakes, do better, and always look to the future and giving back and helping our industry, in particular as it relates to our American wine industry.
Well, thank you for that. And for us, the American Wine Society Educational Foundation, what is very important is to also acknowledge and award students who not only are presenting promising research, with results, early insights, but also we want to support them in their career. So
Absolutely.
we were fortunate to have you on this conversation. Thank you very much, Michael. Congratulations on your career so far. Good luck for the season ahead, and good luck with your studies. And I'm sure we will talk to each other soon. Thank
I look
you.
forward to it. I look forward to it. Thank you again. And thank you again, American Wine Society, for all your support of our students and our industry.